So tell me about yourself. That's the way many job interviews begin. So tell me about yourself. Do you like job interviews? When you think about it, many times a job interview is two people lying to each other, trying to get something from the other person. One person wants the job, the other person's looking for an employee, and they just try to, I'll say enough to hopefully get the job, and I won't share enough about the dysfunction of the company so he will agree to come work. And that's the way it continues. And you hopefully get them hooked before they find out too much. That's the way many job interviews work. But what if there was a job interview that you were completely honest, and it said exactly what was true? Well, what we're looking at today is Moses in kind of a job interview. He's being interviewed for a job, and the title is Rescuer of the Jews. Imagine a job interview going like this. Here's the question. So what's your current position and how long have you had it? I'm a shepherd on the backside of the desert in Midian, and I've been doing that for 40 years. What was your previous position and why did you leave it? Well, I was being prepared to be the next Pharaoh of Egypt since I was a child, and I left that position because I killed an Egyptian, and they were looking to kill me. Oh, that's interesting. Have you done your time for that? No. I think the people that were looking for me to kill me are gone. So I think I'm okay. I think. So you want to be a community organizer to get the largest workforce in Egypt set free. With that kind of background, you must be a very compelling speaker. No. I stutters some. And then you would get, well, that's quite interesting. Don't call us, we'll call you. Can you imagine a job interview? Moses doesn't seem to be the right person for that position. He has what creatively called an interesting background, right? He wasn't a great pick. But this interview we're looking at this morning is kind of a reverse job interview. God's not asking Moses the questions. God has already given the job to Moses. It's Moses asking the questions of God. So, and in this process, God is peeling Moses like an onion. One layer at a time, he's peeling Moses to get to the core issue. So let's watch that. We're in Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 7. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and to lead them out of the land of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. Look, the people of Israel, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh, you must lead my people out of Egypt. See, when God sees a problem, he picks a person. There's a problem over there, I pick you. There's a problem over there, I pick you. There's a problem, you. When there's a problem, he picks a person. God looks for people of action. It doesn't take courage to sit back and go, oh, wow. Oh, that's a mess. I'm glad I'm not a part of that. Wow. It doesn't take courage to do that. And that's not what God's looking for. From God's perspective, if you notice something, tag, you're it. When you notice something, it's your responsibility. God is sending you. And I know. There's a good reason why you can't do it. You've got an excuse, right? So did Moses. But Moses protested to God. Here's excuse number one. Who am I to go to Pharaoh? What is this? It's insecurity. It's insecurity. Like God would say, oh, you're right. What was I thinking? Sorry, wrong guy. Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? God answered, I will be with you. God's presence is our security. God's presence is I will be with you. And then God goes on, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. God is giving Moses hope. Listen, you will indeed bring the people out. What's going to happen is not a question. You will bring, and you come back here. He's giving them hope. You're going to be back here with all of the people. It's going to work. Trust me. He gives him hope. Verse 13. But Moses protested. Excuse number 2. If I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what will I tell them? And Moses' excuse here is he's basically saying, I don't know you well enough. I don't know God well enough. And a name at that time is more about the character of the person, not just an identifier of who that person is. And so he's saying, I really don't know your character. I don't know who you really are. And so in verse 14, God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. What God is saying is, Moses, you do know me. You do know me. You remember what I did with your forefathers. I'm the same God. And he goes on, this is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations. Now go and call together all the leaders, or all the elders of Israel. Tell them, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. I have promised to rescue you from your oppression in Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites now live. And God is telling Moses, give the people hope. Tell them, this is why I'm going to lead you out. You're going to end up in your own country, in your own land. It's a fertile land. And then God goes on. The elders will accept your message. Isn't that good news? The elders are going to accept, hey, you're going to go and you're going to talk to these people, and they're going to believe you. And God goes on, then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt and tell him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, so please let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. And not only did God call him, but God gave him the plan. Here's where you go, here's what you say, this is how you do it. That sounds like that'll work, right? But God goes on. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him. See, God knows the obstacles, and he's telling Moses about the obstacles ahead of time. Don't you hate it when you're blindsided by obstacles? You're working on something. How many of you have worked on something around home? And like, boom, 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 thing after thing happens. Obstacles, right? You ever had that? Oh. God's telling him in advance what's going to happen. He said, so I will raise my hand and strike the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them. Then at last, he will let you go. He's talking about the success. You're going to have success. And I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably on you. They will give you gifts when you go, and you will not leave empty-handed. Every Israelite woman will ask for articles of silver, of gold, of fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from the foreign women in their houses. You will dress your sons and daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. And God giving him all this information so he can give them hope. Tell the people of Israel, this is going to work. You're going to leave. Yes, you are slaves now, but when you leave Egypt, you're going to be wealthy, and you're going to take all the wealth of Egypt with you. He's giving him hope. Exodus 4, starting in verse 1. But Moses protested again. Excuse number 3. What? Maybe I should read this with a little bit of whining in my voice. What if they won't believe me or listen to me? What if they say, the Lord never appeared to you? I don't think I'm going to continue doing that. What is Moses saying? Moses is saying, I'm not persuasive. I'm not persuasive. I'm not going to be able to persuade the king to let us go. It's not going to happen. Verse 2. Then the Lord asked him, what is that in your hand? What is that in your hand? So let me ask you that same question. What is that in your hand? What is it that you have? What do you have? What are your gifts? What are your abilities, your possessions, your occupation? What do you have? That's the question God was asking Moses. What do you have? What did Moses say? A shepherd's staff, Moses replied. See, God uses what we have. He uses what we already have. God didn't say to Moses, now go find a lightsaber. That would have been cool. But God said, what is that you already have? And what does he ask him to do? Throw it down. What do you have? Surrender it. Throw what you have. Give what you have to God. Well, it's not much. I'm not really smart. I'm not good looking. I don't do this. I'm not as smart. My sister, she's the smart one in the family. My brother, he's the one that really has a silver tongue. I don't have that much. God says the same thing to each and every one of us. Throw it down. Surrender. 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 So Moses threw it on the ground. The Lord told him. So Moses threw the staff, and it turned into a snake. See, God transforms what we surrender. And Moses wisely jumps back. When you throw what you have down, when you surrender all that you have to God, he transforms it. So let's pause here in Exodus chapter 4, and let's just take a look at what that staff was called later on. Exodus 17, verses 8 and 9. While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, this is after they got out, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill holding the what? Holding what? What does it say? Staff of who? Staff of God. Not Moses' staff anymore. It's the staff of God. When he parted the Red Sea, what did he raise? Staff of God. It's all they had, and it was surrendered and transformed. Do you want the occupation of God, the family of God, the legacy of God, the dreams of God, the house of God, the lifestyle of God, the plan of God, the retirement of God? Surrender it. Surrender it now. God, it is all yours. I throw it down. And God transforms it. He makes it into something powerful. And he will use that in the lives of other people in the days and the weeks and the years to come. Then the Lord told him, reach out and grab it by its tail. Now, I don't know if any of you have a history of grabbing snakes. I have a little bit of history with a rattlesnake. And you certainly, if you pick up a rattlesnake by the tail, you know what's going to happen next? You're going to get bit. Rattlesnakes don't like to get picked up by the tail. Most snakes don't like to get picked up by the tail. They'll reach right around and grab a hold of you. Where do you pick up a snake? You pick up a snake right behind its head. Why? Because when you grab by the neck and you're holding the head, it can't turn around and bite you. But that is how God told Moses to pick it up. So he picks up the snake by the tail. Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a shepherd's staff in his hand. That would have been so cool. Perform this sign, the Lord said. Then they will believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has really appeared to you. People are going to believe this sign. But wouldn't that be convincing if I did that right now? If I grabbed this music stand right here and threw it down and it turned into a snake. Now all of you would, well, some of you would scream and stand on your chairs. Maybe I would too. But that would be cool, right? That would be pretty convincing. But God was saying, that's not good enough. Let me give you something else. And he gives him even more. Verse 6, the Lord said to Moses, now put your hand inside your cloak. And Moses put his hand inside his cloak. And when he took it out again, the hand was white as snow with a severe skin disease. Now put your hand back in your cloak, the Lord said. Moses put his hand back in. When it came out again, it was healthy like the rest of his body. That's cool, right? It's not done yet. The Lord said to Moses, if they do not believe you and are not convinced by the first miraculous sign, they'll be convinced by the second sign. And if they don't believe you or listen to even these two signs, then take some water from the Nile River and pour it out on dry ground. And when you do, the water from the Nile will turn to blood on the ground. God is saying, listen, you say you're not persuasive. I got a whole bag of tricks. In fact, he's got 10 more after this. It's going to be okay. You will be persuasive. Verse 10, are you ready for this? But Moses pleaded with the Lord. Excuse number 4. Oh Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been, and I'm not now, even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled. I don't know if Moses talked like that, but he had some sort of speech issue that he was embarrassed of. And he said, I'm not gifted enough. I don't have the right gifts. You ever felt like that? You ever felt like, I'm not good? No, that's not my gift. It's not my gift. Why in the world would God ever ask you to do something you're not good at? Would God ask you to do something you're not good at? Why in the world would you do that? Is he mean? Is he horrible? Maybe he wants us to learn how to depend on him. If we can do everything that God asks us to do in our own strength, yeah, I can do that, and I can do that, and I got this, I got that. We can do that in our own strength. We don't need him. But God says, I want you to do this. And we're like, only if you help me, Lord, can I ever do that. And God goes, that's what I'm here for. So what does God say now? Verse 12, now go. There's an exclamation point there. Now go. I will be with you as you speak. I will instruct you what to say. Verse 13. But Moses again pleaded. Oh no. Number 5. You notice how God has been peeling this onion. This is the core issue. Oh Lord, Lord, please send anyone else. Have you ever prayed that prayer? Have you ever said, God, you got the wrong person. Send somebody else. Send anyone else. This is the core issue. Now, why would Moses say that? God has this plan of redeeming, to get slaves out of Egypt. He's going to get them out of slavery. You're going to be a hero, Moses. Aren't you at least interested in that? And Moses is saying, no, I don't want to do it. Why? We need to get a little more background on Moses. In Acts chapter 7, verses 23 to 25, this is Stephen when he's before the council. Notice what Stephen says. One day when Moses was 40 years old, he decided to visit his relatives, the people of Israel. He saw an Egyptian mistreating an Israelite, so Moses came to the man's defense and avenged him, killing the Egyptian. Notice this. Moses assumed his fellow Israelites would realize that God had sent him to rescue them, but they didn't. This time in Exodus 3 and 4 is not the first time that God has called Moses to rescue the children of Israel. God had called him previously when he was living in the house of Pharaoh, when he was being trained to be the next Pharaoh. And God had told him, I want you to rescue my people. And so Moses killed the Egyptian, thinking that the Israelites would realize he's coming to help them. And he failed. He failed. He had failed 40 years earlier. I can't imagine. Have you ever, by the way, how many of you have ever failed at something? Yeah, me too. And Moses spent 40 years on the backside of the desert saying, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. Na, 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 I'm a failure. You ever sung that song? Have you sung that song for 40 years? For 40 years, Moses thought he was a failure. And I had a chance. I mean, I was prepared. I was in the house of Pharaoh. But I blew it. I had a chance. And he blew it. He's a failure. I can't imagine what that would be like. After 40 years, God come back and say, Moses, I want you to do that. No, I don't want to. I don't want to. Can you relate to that? I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. I've done that before. Notice what God does. Verse 14. God is incredibly patient. Then the Lord became angry with Moses. Really? Excuse after excuse after excuse. All right, he said. What about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he speaks well, and look, he's on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with the both of you as you speak. And I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesman to the people, and he will be your mouthpiece. And you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. Is this a good thing? It's a concession. This isn't part of God's original plan. But Moses said, I don't want to. So he said, okay. By the way, do any of you remember who built the golden calf? Aaron. Who let the children of Israel get out of control? Aaron. Yeah. Yeah. Be careful what you ask for. Moses said, send anyone else. God said, well, I'm going to give you Aaron to help you. I bet later on Moses will go, hey, God, if I had to do over again, I wouldn't ask for that. And God said, and take your shepherd's staff with you and use it to perform the miraculous signs I have shown you. So let's just review what we've learned this morning. I can have courage. Why? Because truth number one, God's presence is my security. God's presence is my security. Moses' first excuse was, who am I? We can be secure. We don't have to be insecure because God's with us. There's a hyena that starts approaching this little lion cub. And the little lion cub lets out a roar, if that's what you call it. And the hyena runs away. And that little lion cub is pretty proud of his victory there, and he starts walking away. Realize his dad was behind him the whole time. That's such a great picture of who we are as Christians. Is it because of us? No. It's because our Father. Our Father's right behind us. He's with us. Our security comes from the one who's standing beside us. Truth number 2, I can have courage because I know God through his word. Moses said, I don't know you well enough. We know God through his word. You've read God's word. You know what's in it. And you've seen how God has worked through people. You say, well, I don't really know him well enough. You know God as well as you want to know God. You know God as well as you want to. You want to know God better? Get into his word. You want to know God better? Talk to him. You want to know God better? Connect with other followers of Jesus. I can have courage, thirdly. I am persuasive because God has transformed my life. I am persuasive because God has transformed my life. Jesus, when he saw Peter, Luke chapter 5, Peter was like, Lord, go away from me because I'm a sinful man. Jesus said, Peter, you are a fisherman. I'm going to make you a fisher of men. God wants to take what you're doing and transform it. And the tendency for us is to hide our life behind a box because we don't want anyone to see our failures, our mistakes, where we've blown it. But here's the thing. God's light shines through our lives where we are broken. It's where we are broken that his light shines through our lives. And that's what makes our lives persuasive. Truth number 4, I can have courage because I have received gifts from God. God has created you and gifted you for the purpose that he's called you to. You already have everything that you need. Truth number 5, I can have courage because God will transform my failure. God used Moses' failure. You will have periods of time where you feel like, I've wasted it, I've ruined it, it's a mess, no one can fix it. And we look at ourselves and think, and God is saying, oh good, they're right where I want them. And when we're at our most broken, that's when God says, I can use you now. And that's what God did. God took the past of Moses. When Moses thought, I'm a failure, what was he doing? He spent 40 years in the backside of the desert. What was he going to do for the next 40 years? He was going to be in the desert. God was preparing him. God is using the things you're doing now. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's preparation for what's next. God is preparing you for what's next. And he'll use that to help other people. Would you stand with me? God has given us everything we need. We have to do one thing. One thing. Surrender. Surrender. Lord, I give up. So that's what I'm calling you to do this morning. So I'm going to start a prayer, and I'm asking each and every one of you to finish this prayer. And it's this prayer. Dear God, I surrender. You fill in the blank. Dear God, I surrender. Father, thank you that you transform our failure. Thank you that you prepare us for what's next. Thank you that you are working and you will make your light shine through our lives. Thank you for what you're going to do in us to repair the brokenness. And then thank you for what you're going to do through us. In Jesus' name, amen.